Hey, this is Andy, AR Engineering. I have a short video here talking about using a sniper with a performance cam. So the engine in question here is a 496 cubic inch Mopar big block, and it has a hydraulic roller camshaft with 239, 245 timing at 50. And this engine makes a little over 600 horsepower on an engine dyno. So not a full race engine. This is a pump gas engine, daily driver, premium gas type of engine. So there's 4 tricks that we'll talk about, and you need these tricks, or else the sniper just isn't going to be happy on a performance engine. The sniper out of the box will not work very well if you have a camshaft of that size. First trick is you need the proper ignition timing. And there's several ways to do it. Probably the least hassle, the easiest way to do it is to get a Hyperspark distributor. Once you have the Hyperspark distributor, you can build a complete ignition timing map like we've showed here on the screen into the sniper. If you don't have the Hyperspark, you're kind of limited to what you can do. So I'm just going to assume that you have a Hyperspark because that's the easiest way to make a sniper work with a high performance cam. What I'll show you here is wide open throttle. This engine's going to want right at 35 degrees. So this plateau here is all wide open throttle. This plateau up here is your high vacuum or low manifold pressure. And we have 8 degrees of vacuum advance. So it goes from 35 to 43. The engine only sees this area when you're decelerating down a hill, decelerating after a drag race pass, something like that. Cruising down the freeway, you're going to be in this range here, and that's around 40 degrees. But the most important area is right here. This is the idle area. And this engine works best with 26, 27, 28 degrees of timing at idle, somewhere in that range. That's a lot more timing than a lot of people put into these engines. But just experiment on your own. I've found that you always need at least 20 degrees, if not 25, or up to even 30, depending on how big the cam is. Another thing that's important is idle speed. So idle speed with a performance cam just has to be higher than it is with a stock cam. This engine is dialed in at 925 RPM for hot idle. Cold idle is 1250. And that's just going to be the way it is. You cannot run a performance engine at idle very low. They just won't work very well. So if you're having problems, just increase the idle speed until things start to work better, and then go from there. Go up here to engine parameters. So this engine, 496 cubic inches. The cam type is stock. Even though this is a high performance cam, we still pick stock. If you call the Holley Tech line, they might tell you to use street strip, or they might even tell you to use a race cam. Almost always a mistake to use anything other than stock. You'll end up with a very rich base fuel table. You can experiment with that if you want. If the tune doesn't work right, try a stock cam type. You'll be surprised. And here we're using a Hyperspark, so we've got the reference angle at 57.5, and this engine works okay with the out-of-the-box 100 microsecond inductive delay. Last thing to talk about, target air-fuel ratio. This engine, this is the idle area, this engine works best with 13.9 air-fuel ratio target at idle. I always set up a performance engine with 13.5 in this area. I start with 13.5, and then once the engine is running, we get it up to a warm idle, And then we just change these numbers. You just click them and drag them. Use the arrow key to increase it. See if it wants a leaner than 13.5 or richen it up. See if it wants richer than 13.5. And when you do that, you watch the map sensor and you watch the IAC, and those will tell you when the engine is happy. This engine, we went through that process. 13.9 is what it wants. Wide open throttle, this engine wants 12.8. Cruising on the freeway or under deceleration, 14.7 seems to work. These numbers down here, the idle air-fuel ratio and the cruise and decel, these are all experimental derived numbers. These numbers up here, wide open throttle, most wedge type performance cylinder heads are going to want 12.8. You can try 12.5, it's probably a little too rich. You can try 13:1, might be a little too lean. I just always make them 12.8. We run them on the dyno, we change that number. We always come back to something right around 12.8. Anyway, that wraps it up. Those 4 things are what you need to pay attention to when you have a performance cam: the idle speed, the timing, the target AFR, and the type of camshaft that you pick when you initially create the base fuel table. Thanks.